Hello everyone! Today I want to show you how a strong bass line can make a seemingly random bunch of chords sound like a very cinematic chord progression. Hi, my name is Noam, and today I want to talk to you about bass, and more specifically about a descending stepwise bass line. A bass line, as the name suggests, is the melody played by the bass. As you may know, any chord is built from chord tones. It's got the 1, the 3, 5, sometimes 7, 9, etc. The 1 in the chord is called the root note. And when we just play a chord in its simplest form, our bass is playing the root note. If we have C major, we got C in the bass. If we have E flat major, we got E flat in the bass. We got A minor, A in the bass. All right, the root note, the 1, is in the bass. But that doesn't have to be that way. We can use chord inversions, which is just a fancy way of saying put a different note in the bass. Instead of having the root note, you could put the 3 in the bass. You could put the 5 in the bass. You could put the 7 in the bass even. Let's listen to what that sounds like. Again, in C major, for simplicity's sake, root position. Then if we have the 3 in the bass, it would sound like this. Interesting sound. Or if we have the 5 in the bass. Or if I have the 7 in the bass, turning it into a C7 chord. We can use these chord inversions to make bass lines that sound more melodic, meaning they move more in steps than jumping around from root note to root note. I said we would talk about a descending bass line, more specifically this bass line. If I would harmonize this bass line using chords in their root position, I could come up with this popular chord progression. Sound familiar? Sultans of Swing. Hit the road jack. But if I use chord inversions, I can harmonize this same familiar bass line in a whole bunch of different ways using different chords. This actually ties back into my previous video where I talked about reharmonization, which is basically doing the same thing with a melody. Now we are reharmonizing the bass. So I've prepared a little example. In this example, we have the same bass line, but in C. If I would harmonize it in the regular way. For the first chord, instead of C minor, I used A minor, and the C in the bass is the 3. My second chord is G flat, and the B flat in the bass is the 3 again. Then I have C sharp minor, and the A flat in the bass is now called G sharp, and that's the 5 of this chord. And to resolve, I ended up on G minor in root position. If I just play these chords in root position, it would sound like this. A minor, G flat major, C sharp minor, and G minor. Feeling pretty disconnected, but let's listen to how it sounds when I have this descending bass line underneath. I think that sounds fairly coherent, especially if you contrast that to the same exact orchestration, but having the bass jump from root to root. Let's listen to what that would sound like. Okay, especially that last jump in the bass really felt disjointed. So basically this descending bass line is gluing our chords together. I'll wrap up this video with one more example in which I used more complex chords and give a more cinematic vibe, in my opinion. Let's listen to it. Now, just for fun, I will again let you hear how this would sound with a bass line that's jumping from root to root. much less coherent, much less glued together. I've also orchestrated this example so you could hear how it could sound in a more full cinematic orchestration. Pretty cinematic. Let's add in a melody. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed the video, if you learned something, please leave me a like, subscribe to the channel. That would help me a lot. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to post them here below in the comments section. Until next time, goodbye.